What are you hearing about Peter Navarro and the details about maybe him sliding into the top economic role here?
So, Mnuchin and Trump himself have said that the economic bench is pretty deep. There are a lot of people that could fill this post. He is in the White House already. He had been reporting to Gary Cohn. He is a competent economist. He comes from the University of California at Riverside. He's written a number of controversial books. Most of them center on the question of China's role in the world and China's unfair advantages when it comes to the trading regime. So this action actually represents a lot of his research. I know Trump likes him, cares for him, handpicked him. He was on the Economic Council even before the campaign started or when it started. There's also speculation that Larry Kudlow, of course, who's an old Reaganite, a supply sider, was at CNBC for years as kind of the lead commentator on the stock market, could fill that position. So there are a number of people that could go into it.
So Elon Musk tweets out the facts about the unfair trade deals, and then President Trump reads it as he is announcing his tariffs on steel and aluminum. The tweet goes, "It's very difficult for Tesla. The U.S. places a 2.5% tariff on cars imported from to the U.S. from China, while China places a 25% tariff on U.S. imports." So again, tenfold what we pay. We pay 10 times as much to import goods to China as they pay to import goods here. That's not fair. Musk then makes the analogy, it's like competing in an Olympic race wearing lead shoes, of course, while the other athletes are wearing the latest Nikes and blowing by us. So Trump removes the lead shoes with these tariffs, and we're already starting to see the steel industry celebrating this. Ted Malloch, I know that you've been on other mainstream news outlets talking about this. When it first broke, I was hearing kind of both sides of the issue. Some people said it was bad. Some people said it was good. There were the principled people saying, I don't believe in tariffs in general, but then I think it makes sense to try to have a fair trade deal. Now I'm to the point where I'm hearing so much praise from the steel industry, the aluminum industry. I'm seeing the manufacturing jobs back. To me now, it's case closed. Trump knew exactly what he was doing with these tariffs.
Well, not only did he know what he was doing, but he studied it very seriously for 9 months. It's a 232 action, so it has to do with national security. He's got some of the smartest guys in the world working on this with him. They include Secretary of Commerce Wilbur Ross, the U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer, who is undoubtedly the best guy in the world on these kinds of trade disputes, and Peter Navarro, who many of us know, of course, is an economist who has that point of view. He had a debate in the White House. Gary Cohn took the globalist position, and he lost. He resigned. And now we have those tariffs being put in place. Now, what are they about? They're really going after the excess capacity of steel and aluminum in the world. In the case of steel, there are about 2 billion tons of steel manufactured a year. 800 million of those come from one place, China. They dump them on the world. We have got a kind of a whack-a-mole system where they transship it to various countries, then they ship it to the United States and to other developed countries. And we've got to put an end to that. We've got to put an end to that unfair trading system. We've got to do it for national security reasons. And we'll have some countries that we can basically excuse from this. He said he'll excuse Canada and Mexico. But even here, again, brilliantly, if and only if, and this is leverage, they play with us on NAFTA. If they don't, then they get the same tariffs.
I want to kind of go off on a rail here that you mentioned Peter Navarro. A lot of people are saying that Peter Navarro could be next in line for the economic advisor position that's going to be vacated when Cohn is out. What are you hearing about that role possibly for Peter Navarro? While some people are pointing out, this is a guy who actually is a Democrat and a liberal, kind of like Cohn was a globalist versus the nationalist. So what are you hearing about Peter Navarro and the details about maybe him sliding into the top economic role here?
So, Mnuchin and Trump himself have said that the economic bench is pretty deep. There are a lot of people that could fill this post. He is in the White House already. He had been reporting to Gary Cohn. He is a competent economist. He comes from the University of California at Riverside. He's written a number of controversial books. Most of them center on the question of China's role in the world and China's unfair advantages when it comes to the trading regime. So this action actually represents a lot of his research. I know Trump likes him, cares for him, handpicked him. He was on the Economic Council even before the campaign started or when it started. There's also speculation that Larry Kudlow, of course, who's an old Reaganite, a supply sider, was at CNBC for years as kind of the lead commentator on the stock market, could fill that position. So there are a number of people that could go into it. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Peter. When Trump appeared yesterday, and it was brilliant, you have to give him credit here for the photo opportunity. When he appeared in the White House to sign that trade action, he had behind him all of those steel and aluminium workers, as they call it in the UK, aluminum workers. Those are basically working class Democrats from Ohio, Pennsylvania, Kentucky, all those places that we need to win in the midterm elections. The Democrats must have been having a heart attack when they saw that photo opportunity. But the four people standing with Trump included the vice president, the secretary of the Treasury, the secretary of Commerce, and Peter Navarro. So I think there's a bit of hint there already.
This is twisting me into knots now. I can't remember who it was. It was either some Democrat congressman or liberal talk show host that tweeted out like some sarcastic tweet like, here's a list of all the people lining up for Trump's top economic advisor role. And then it was like some joke like nobody wants it. And I'm like, you are such fake news. It's like, how do you even live in that reality? Really? You don't think there's a line of people wanting to be Trump's top economic advisor, the most historic White House administration ever? I mean, Ted, doesn't that really display how lost they are in their own nonsense?
I mean, then you're going to hear that, what, nobody wants to go on the Supreme Court next? I mean, do you really believe this nonsense?
Yeah, yep, exactly.
I mean, there's a rumor floating today that Justice Kennedy, by the way, is going to step down this summer. So I don't know myself, but I mean, that rumor has circulated in the past. That would give us a second opportunity and maybe a third opportunity. And next year, we could pack this court and the conservatives can control social and judicial policy for the next 30 years.
And see, this is why the Democrats are freaking out. This is why they're doubling down on the fake news. I mean, especially if Ginsburg, you know, if she's going to be the next one to go too. I mean, that's one of the liberal judges. You replace that with a conservative judge. I mean, it's like, wow, you know, Trump just saved this country for decades to come.
Trump appoint anybody that's not approved by the Federalist Society? No way. He's already got his list, so we know who's on that list. Not to say he couldn't add some others, but they're all going to be very solid, strict constructionist judges who have brilliant political and judicial careers like Judge Gorsuch. I mean, Trump is going to appoint those kinds of people. I mean, the other big thing in the news today, talk about, you know, lacking for big things, is the people in Oslo must be scratching their heads because they're going to have to give President Donald J. Trump the Nobel Peace Prize.
Oh my gosh, they could never do that. That would admit that they're so, I mean, hey, honestly, watch this though. Look, let's see what happens with North Korea. Remember, Obama got the Nobel Peace Prize for doing nothing. But let's see what happens if Trump actually is victorious getting a deal done with North Korea and then still doesn't get it. You know what? I'm not sure where to go with you because we were going down the judicial side of things. In fact, Ted, are you available for another 5 minutes after this segment is up?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. So I'm going to get into another issue in the short segment next. But what can President Trump do about the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals? This is essentially a liberal panel of judges that just wipes the floor with the Constitution every day. They don't care. They don't put Americans first. They're destroying Trump's decisions that are trying to put America first. I mean, what can he do about the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals? These people are out of control.
Well, very little. I mean, if an opening comes up, he can obviously appoint someone who's more to his liking and begin to shape those courts, not only that one, but other circuit courts around the country. And he's doing that. He's gotten more judges through in the first year, I think, than any president in the last 50 years. So that's already taken place. And it's like deregulation. He doesn't get enough credit for it. There's so much deregulation going on that CEOs that I talk to are just gaga. They thought he might have been able to, you know, shake the cage a little bit, but unprecedented what's happening. The Ninth Circuit Court and others like it, I'm afraid we're going to have to keep challenging them at higher levels in appellate courts and then eventually in the Supreme Court. We've got about a 5-4 vote now on the Supreme Court. If that goes to 6-3, which it would this summer, then there's not much that they can do.
And there's the tweet from Trump just a few months ago. It shows everyone how broken and unfair our court system is when the opposing side in a case such as DACA always runs to the Ninth Circuit and almost always wins before being reversed by their higher courts. This is the same thing that Democrats do with the superdelegates in the nomination process. They rig the entire thing. So, oh, well, our candidate might not be able to get in, so let's just give them all the secret delegates. Okay, now they're in. Like, oh, crap, we're wrong on this court decision. We're on the wrong side of justice here, but let's go to our stocked Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals loaded with liberal judges that always go with the anti-American decision, and they'll go for it. And I'll tell you what, Ted, if they make an example of Libby Schaaf breaking the law out there in Oakland, I think that they could be coming after some of these judges next. What do you think?
Well, it's very difficult to displace the judges. I think she, on the other hand, is quite guilty, and the Department of Justice should go after her. I mean, it's ridiculous not to allow ICE. I mean, this is the equivalent of succeeding from the union, isn't it?
Well, and then you have Sessions kind of make that comparison. Let's recall that it was California that broke federal law and would not let black people go to school. And that's what they did to break federal law. Now they're basically doing the same thing, putting non-Americans over Americans.
You know, someone very profoundly once said many years ago that if fascism ever comes to America, it'll come in the name of liberalism.
You're a white man! You're a white man!
If you are receiving this transmission, you are the resistance.
InfoWars comes to mind.
Alex Jones.
Alex Jones.
Alex Jones.
There's a lot of controversy around this network about Alex Jones.
Google is being accused of hiding negative stories about Hillary and her campaign by changing its algorithm to bury stories like the Clinton body count story. That's according to website InfoWars.
It sounds like it's confirmed there are at least 2 shooters with fully automatic weapons.
Dr. Martin Luther King has been shot to death in Memphis, Tennessee.
JFK was shot from the back and the front.
It was almost as if it were a planned implosion. It just pancaked.
They took the babies out of incubators and left the children to die on the front floor.
I think this is a national security imperative. We have clear things that we do not understand how they work, operating in areas that we can't control.
UFOs.
Is this global governance at last? Is it one world? The central bank is in charge.
Israel claims the attack was accidental, but some former U.S. naval officers say it was on purpose. They describe the day's action as part of a continuing cover-up.
Russian intelligence compiled a dossier on Mr. Trump during visits to Moscow.
Russian scum!
Denied everything. He called it all fake news.
And he accused CNN of being fake news.
This is a national emergency.
If they kill Trump or remove Trump, it will cause a massive civil war in this country.
This is a FEMA high-level alert.
We are at war with Russia.
Are you aware that Mr. Stone also stated publicly that he was in direct communication with Julian Assange and WikiLeaks?
The White House and the President are citing InfoWars.
If they can shut us down, you're next.
If you are receiving this transmission, you are the resistance. It's Alex Jones.
We've taken Brain Force and made it Brain Force Plus. Now at 20% more in the bottle and an even more hardcore formula. You owe it to yourself to get these products. They really have worked for myself, my family. They have 5-star reviews by the thousands. InfoWarsLife.com.